Ladies, lovelies, and gents, welcome to your ChiCast. I'm your voice of mindfulness, Marcus Julian Carbo, coming to you live from TCWM Studios in your city of brotherly love. And well, today, here in the middle of September, I'm of course thinking about autumn. And in this autumn thought, well, it was spurred by my first sighting of that spirit Halloween. Just there, across the parking lot. I think it used to be a CVS or something. But there it was. And then I knew. Soon the leaves are gonna change. The days are already getting shorter. I know on my ride this morning, there was no sense of heat at any point in time. And that in and unto itself is, well, dynamic. When you spend as much time as some of us do outside, you get a real sense of what different temperatures feel like, of what changes, small and big, are like to experience. And when you do this, when you feel this, that sensitivity to these changes happens all the time. Every day, I ride on the trail. The trail is always a little different. At every point, there's either more growth, perhaps there's even, oh wow, we have a guest star, the fabulous Odysseus Khufu, who is going to chew on plastic to try and get my attention. But here we are with the muffs on, and he's got a tiny little kitty brain. So I kind of feel bad for him right now. But this is how this is gonna go. Hey buddy. Hey you. Why don't you come over? Say hi to everybody. No, I just want to lick plastic and get on your nerves. So where was I? Yes. So when you spend a lot of time outside, I'm not saying you're an outdoorsman, but I'm saying maybe you take a walk in the evening, and so you notice that the trees on your sidewalk or on your street change. Perhaps you garden. And then you're really in it, noticing what is growing at certain times of the year, what you're planting at others. There's a lot going on there. Even if you drive a lot, I know that's an encapsulated feeling. But if you spend a lot of time in the country, you'll know what I'm talking about, especially if you have the windows down. And so, if you spend a lot of time outdoors, you'll notice these things. But if you are like I once was, and you have to work in a cubicle, you're in an office, perhaps you're a teacher, perhaps you're a nurse. Maybe you work in a law office all day. Maybe you're a welder and you're inside your shop all day from dawn till dusk, right? So there's lots of ways of life that don't experience the outdoors. And because of that, we can be a little detached from the world around us. The only time we're outdoors is in the car or maybe on that commute. And that's not really being mindful. Generally speaking, when we're on the commute, we're on our way to work. We're not thinking about, oh, that's new growth in that patch of grass right there. There's a puddle that wasn't there yesterday. Maybe you do. But I know when I was working in industry, having panic attacks, walking from Market Street down through campus, I wasn't thinking about smelling the roses at that time. And so many of us live a life that is too fast-paced to stop and smell the roses. But when fall arrives, there's no getting around that. Fall is all around you. The leaves change, at least for us not in the tropics. The leaves change. It gets colder. It really does become less sunny throughout the day. The place of the sun in the sky is different, which is just awful because of course, we're in the northern hemisphere, and so it sets lower in the southeast, obviously. But if you're headed down I-95 at dusk, the sun is right in your face. Anyway, I'd like to know, for all of our I-95 folks out there, do you have the same experience this time of year? See, that's one of those interesting things. Autumn is so dynamic. There's an argument to be made for spring being just as dynamic. There's blooming, there's foliage, there's life returning to the world, and I suppose we do notice those things. But as we start to go through the paces, once it greens up, that's it. We don't do that real transition between spring and summer. It just all sort of gets a little warmer, and so on and so forth. Although, for our folks down in the southern hemisphere, understanding that your seasons are opposite, where and how does autumn manifest? Is it similar? Because the geographies are incredibly different. So, my Australian, South African, Argentinian friends and family, let me know. How does fall manifest near you? And really, all of you, how does the autumn show itself in your world? I can only speak here from the perspective of a person in the Northeast of the United States. And even then, we have a fairly tame... Hey there, Mike. Thanks for checking in on the ChiCast, brother. Glad to see you too. As a quick background, he and I used to work together so many years ago. We were working together, and he was technically my boss, but he was more like my big brother. And he guided me through the transition of being a soldier and working my way back into the civilian world. And so him and I have remained within reach of each other always. Little messages here, there, so my brother, to you. Thank you. And I want to welcome all of you checking in. We have a whole bunch of likes and follows here, so welcome to the ChiCast. So where was I? I was talking about autumn, and Mike actually lives in the same sort of climate that I do. So I'd be interested, or he lives in the same general place as me. So what's it like over there across the river? I know there's a lot of farmers markets there. Over here we have the Amish markets, and that all changes. That's another thing that changes with autumn. There's the smells that come out of our homes, the bakeries, even Starbucks becomes robust with pumpkin spice and new breads and lovely delicacies, which is just so good. And then the desserts. All the desserts, the apple pies, the pumpkin pies, as they begin to make their way. Yeah. Walking through any of those live markets is just, it's something I'm having a hard time describing. It's a feeling. It's, how would you describe it? How would you, wherever you are, how would you describe the smells of autumn? For instance, Christmas has a distinct smell, sort of pine and sugar cookies. And that feels and smells like winter and Christmas. And it has a sense, but autumn is this awe-encompassing, almost like a warm blanket being draped over you. It's also another time when traditions begin to come into play for all of us, everywhere across the world. We're starting to get into that harvest season. Whether it be over in Germany, whether it be... Wow. Thank you, funny man, for showing up in the comments there. That never takes long, ladies and gentlemen. But here, we all understand. We absolutely all understand that without this, it would not be the Tao. So there it is. We take it with a grain of salt. And let's see what we can do. That's all right. Just trying to remove a few things here, ladies and gents. All right. So let's talk once again about the changes. The changes that we see, not just in the fall, but all around us. Everywhere around us. Because at this point in time, the change is very much in front of us. And if that be the case, well, what do we do about it? Well, the reality is, change is inevitable. It's constantly happening around us. It's only that in the fall, it's unquestioned. It is happening. Change is without a doubt a wonderful thing, or can be, if and when we understand that change is no different than the fall. It's no different than autumn. It's no different than this inevitable joy that we begin to feel every year. There's discomfort in the fall, certainly. There's absolutely times where it may rain, it may snow unexpectedly, and what seems like magic suddenly feels like a mud puddle. Sometimes literally. And we do forget those things. We do tend to take for granted how quickly things will become cold. Last year, we took a trip up to New York with all I can say is September's wear in November, and that was a mistake. That's speaking though. When it comes to change, if we understand, not only is it inevitable, but it is, quite frankly, a necessary thing. How else could we grow? How could we learn? How could we become a better us if change wasn't possible? Now, change can be scary. Think back to when maybe our brains were first being turned on, and we started to realize that seasonal change, or perhaps it was the first time our ancestors moved in to a climate that would have experienced these types of changes. Well, it probably was a bit scary the first time round, maybe even the second, maybe even the third. It may have taken a long time for we as human beings to get used to that change, to get used to that newness, that understanding that through death comes life. Now understand that. Through death comes life. Well, that's something we accept all the time. Even the vegans don't get out of this one. Something has to die for us to sustain ourselves. It's simply the nature of the universe. That's the world, the thermodynamics, and how it works. It's just physics. And those changes, because of that, because death brings forth life, we look at it the same way as the autumn. That constant change, that time to check in on the year and decide, what things am I doing now that I'd like to get rid of? What information would I like to learn about because of the experience I had in the spring and summer? Have my goals become more focused? Have my goals become more identified? And is it now time to start letting certain distractions literally fall away and settle in with these new goals over the course of the winter? It's a thought. Most animals, most of life, Most of the universe lives in some sort of seasonality. Well, why not use our rhythm? Why not use nature in order to define how we live our own lives? I'm not talking about living in the woods and in the mountains and all that. I'm saying use the year. Use your own rhythm, your own clock to figure out how you're going to enter the next year. How you're going to utilize the present moment you're in. For instance, in the spring, that's the time to put what you've been practicing in the winter into work. It's the time for your ideas to start to bloom and bud, and then in the summer you work them and you get them to grow the way you want in your fields and your gardens. And then in the fall you reap your harvest. You allow those things to fall away. You gather the goods. Perhaps you let the chaff, you feed it to the animals. Whatever you do, allow that to be a part of your life. Allow that idea. Do I need X? Do I need Y? Or is it getting in the way of something I truly want? Often our wants will fix our needs if we follow them to our fullest. Or I should say, to their fullest. But even in that, there's a season of play and a season of rest. There's game time, there's practice time, and there's planning time. As we get deeper into anything, we find ourselves in the planning and practice stage more, that the game time is less important than figuring out the techniques, your boundaries, your approach, your intake of information or nutrition, whatever your situation may be. Allow it to change in a way where it moves towards something you want. Now that may be uncomfortable. After all, the leaves falling is a form of death. But in many ways, it's no different than your nails being cut off because they're getting in the way. There's a time for that. There's a season for the leaves. There's a season for change, even though change happens every day. And that's why it's important to never beat yourself up, to never put so much pressure on you that you become scared, that you freeze in place. Because every time you make a mistake, you get a little better. Every time you say, oh, I forgot to meditate today. Well, in that moment, you are now thinking about your meditation, and you have a choice. You could say, you know what? I'm gonna take 30 seconds. The world can live without me for 30 seconds. Take that quick meditation and move on, or just make a note. I will do better tomorrow. But then tomorrow, follow through. Now listen, you may buy the book, subscribe to the service, you may do all of that. But what's important is that you find the pieces of the book, the pieces of the chapter that you find value in. Now, it's true, in any real practice worth its weight in salt, there's going to be something valuable to doing all the things it prescribes. But if it doesn't, don't worry about it. There'll come a time when you find value in whatever it is they're pitching. Or maybe you won't. Perhaps you find something in another discipline that you can wrap in and bring it in yourself. There's a lot of flexibility when you just follow your heart and allow your brain to learn the way. And understand that these changes are always temporary. Understand that you, me, and all of our family is just a constant flow of information traveling not just from us, not just through us, but from my brain, through my voice, into this mic, through these cables, through the web, all the way into your ears and brain and thoughts and minds. And that's just physics. That's the nature of the universe. So don't fear change. One, it's inevitable. But that inevitability allows for us to create, to practice, to get a little better each and every day. Thank you for joining me on the ChiCast. I'm your voice of mindfulness, Marcus Julian Carbo, coming to you live from TCWM Studios in the city of brotherly love. Be sure to follow me on the socials at With Marcus on Facebook, Twitter, and TikTok and Twitter and Insta with _Marcus. I'm there putting things here and there. I'm getting back into the groove of things, and I'll try to share more. But until then, do be sure to like, share, and subscribe. Again, we had a bunch of people come in here at the beginning to follow, and I just want to thank them for doing so. At the same time, help spread the word. And then, of course, remember for yourself, as you go forward, keep it simple. No matter how complex it gets, break it down into small parts. And those you work with, always be patient. See them as a reflection of yourself, your enemy, nothing more than your shadow. And above all, treat yourself with compassion. For you are the most important. Until I see you again, Peace and love.